Welcome to Totally That's Stupid. My name is Reed Hitchcock,
And I'm Jonathan Bush.
and we're here to talk about cars and other things about life. But today we're thinking about cars. We talk a lot about different cars, just all different cars. We sort of maintain that we can drive anything and enjoy it, right? I mean, that's sort of one of the tenets of our Totally That Stupid. Are you stupid enough to drive this car? Yes, I am. And so one of the things we've talked about is cars that we would enjoy owning, but would be sort of embarrassed to admit, right? Sort of in a vacuum.
It's more cars in a vacuum. It's We would not necessarily be embarrassed to own them, but we wouldn't want to have to justify them,
Fair,
right? Because
fair.
I feel like Reed and I, for years and years and years, and we definitely have our biases. I'll preface my next statement with that. But to Reed's point, we can have fun driving anything. We've talked about, you know, chasing a Euro M535 over Donner Pass in a Lincoln Town Car, and that was really fun. We've talked about all sorts of different ways we've had fun in cars. Um, but not everybody gets that. And people have, everybody, including ourselves, have our biases. Oh, well, I don't, how could you ever have fun driving a Lincoln Town Car? Well, Lincoln Town Cars are awesome, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So,
Especially the ones with the bun warmers.
yeah, especially rentals.
Right. Right.
Rentals are the best Lincoln Town Cars. Um, so we started thinking like, okay, what would we want to have for a little bit or longer than a little bit that we, again, sort of in a vacuum, but how, a car we would enjoy, a car we could have some fun with, but, and we would certainly take it to Cars and Coffee or take it to the store or whatever, but we wouldn't necessarily call our more biased car friends and say, look what I got, right?
Or you'd have to be sort of ready to brace for the mocking because
Right.
you know it's coming.
You could have done this other thing, right?
Well, of course, that's a whole different conversation. For the same money, you could have gotten, insert
Right.
any number of
But I
cars.
feel like that's more our conversation,
Fair.
as opposed to other people. Most of my other car friends are like, yeah, I don't know that I would have gotten that. You could have gotten a lot of other things for that, regardless of what that is, or the well, that seems out of character for you.
That I've gotten before. I remember when I bought a brand new 2012 Kia Optima.
I think I probably said something to the effect of, well, that seems out of character for you.
Well, what was funny was I took my daughter to soccer practice, and I'm in my brand new Kia hybrid, carpool exemption, all that. And I thought they were good looking cars. I mean, honestly, that was the Audi designer that went to work for the Koreans and was doing some neat stuff with design. And I thought, how bad could it be? And for the year and a half I owned it, it was fine. But I go to soccer practice and I pull in, and one of the moms, who's one of like the Uber moms, right? The ones that's involved in everything, with their kids and whatever. She walks up and she goes, "Well, that's not a Mercedes." And you want to say that's very astute of you, but you're kind of like, just trying something different.
Right.
And that's when I'm thinking about these cars in a vacuum, or I think that's sort of what we're calling it. Is there is that conversation, right? Well, that's not a what I normally drive. Well, no, it's not, but that's part of the appeal to me. Yeah, I want to drive this. To your earlier point, I don't necessarily want to drive it for long. I mean, I'm very good at not driving cars for a long time if I see a squirrel, but. But I do like to play with different things, and to me that's part of car enthusiasm is different things, changing it up a little bit, and maybe getting a little bit of that reaction from some people sometimes.
Hmm.
Like, really? I mean, not so much from you. Like when you start criticizing my cars, like I take it personally. But
That's good because I generally mean it personally.
oh, I know.
Most other people, when they ask for car advice, I go, hey, that's not a great idea. It's not personal. it's a floating conversation. It's gonna float away. Who cares? But when you're like, I think I'm gonna do this, like, dude, you're not gonna do that. You're just not
And
gonna,
sometimes I still do anyway. More
right?
often than not, the car gets sold because short
Squirrel,
attention span and
right? Squirrel.
yeah. Yeah, I think about our friend Jay and his eclectic collection of obscure German cars that he seems to get sort of, I don't know, periodically, mercilessly mocked for, but they're actually really neat cars. And he has the sort of ability to withstand the criticism and keeps leaning in hard. I sort of admire that about him because he's got a neat collection of wackadoodle cars.
Well, he does, and his cars are generally very interesting. But he's also, I mean, he's committed to the bit, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it's not like, oh, I'm going to sell all my cars because, and not that I don't think he gets mocked by a lot of, I think he only gets mocked by one person we know.
Fair. And if you're watching, you know who you are.
That's right. But he's committed and he loves the cars and he will defend the cars and all that. So it's not a fleeting thing for him,
No,
right? It would
no.
be a fleeting thing, oddly enough, if he got out of his esoteric space and bought like, I don't know, a new E-Class. He'd be like,
Right,
really?
right.
Really?
Or an oldie class.
Or an old, well, in his case, an old E-Class. Like, I mean,
Uh,
nice car, but really?
but okay, so ponder that for a little bit. So think about what cars are on your list. But while you're thinking about that, what'd you do in your garage this week?
So I'm actually putting together a bit of a film about our 83 Bauer 323 BMW. Um, it, I think it'll be interesting. I have the full-size Bauer, the car, but I also have different models of the car. I've got Matchbox, literally Matchbox size cars. I've got slightly larger, they're like 1/38 scale versions. So I'm playing with that.
How many
Uh,
how many Bowers did they make
uh,
ish?
12,000 over the entire run, maybe.
It amazes me that they made so many miniatures of a relatively low production car like that.
Well, in Europe, I get it because the cars were around, right?
Yeah,
If you wanted a 3 Series convertible, open top, that's what you were getting for a long time.
until BMW
Like
just
the fact that Matchbox, the brand, made many different variants, and yes, some of the ones I have are from Europe. They're branded, BP and M and all that, which I never.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're not wrong, but yeah, they're out there. It's a little weird, and even some of the really, really off-brand Matchbox-sized cars, like some of those brands that you find on eBay that you've never heard of before, even they make
Yeah.
like okay.
Yeah, I know, especially in Europe, there's a bunch of those like very small production, like obscuro brands of miniatures. I was looking for miniatures for the SL 500,
Hmm.
and I was coming across all kinds of things I'd never heard of. And then they want like $280. I'm not spending $280 on a miniature SL 500.
Right. Yeah. No, the Cursor 320, remember I think they're 323 Bauer tops are nice little models. The wheels aren't great because the wheels are rarely great. But the body and the interior are really good. And they made it four different colors, I think, none of which are bronze it. So at some point I'm going to buy a white or a silver one and shoot it bronze it. So I have the car.
Are you going to paint the interior Nutria too?
Of course. Why would I not do that?
So on my end, it's been actually well, relatively productive car week because after ages of contemplating it and seeing it leaned up against the wall in my garage, I got the bumper installed on the back of the E24 633
Nice.
CSI, and so shiny new bumper. And now sitting in my laundry room at this moment is the front section of the exhaust that needs to be installed.
Nice.
But yesterday, when I got back, we actually did a dine and drive thing yesterday out in the Virginia countryside. It was a beautiful day for it. Like, perfect fall. The colors were good. Nobody broke down. Like, total good event. Um, I took the SL on that, and then when I got back, I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I'm going to use this much more this season, if it survives. That's a different conversation. Although the headlight switch failed sort of in a special way on that car yesterday. I turned it and it like didn't really feel right because you know in old Mercedes the headlight switch is clunk clunk.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
one sort of went. "Eh." The
Um,
lights came on. If I pushed it too far, then I got a bulb out light. But if I just pulled it back a little bit, the headlights were on. So I thought, okay, I want to put the fogs on. No such thing. Like I pull out on it, they come on. You let go, and the switch just like it wasn't. The notches
yeah.
weren't there. So I thought, well, that's odd. So I tried to turn it left. You know where you've got the parking light things on an old Mercedes. Won't go left at all. Like so. This morning I ordered a new headlight switch,
I was saying,
and
and then the switch fully failed internally and the car burned down.
things happen. Uh, so so I ordered a new switch today, but so after I got back yesterday, I thought I cleaned it up and put it up on the lift rack and took the BMW off because the BMW now that the bumper's done, I don't need to do anything underneath it because I'm paying somebody to install the exhaust. And so I brought it down, put the Mercedes up, put the cover on it, and I put some fuel stabilizer in the tank just in case it's done for the season. You know, with the top on it and being up on the lift. I mean, out of sight, out of mind, which is where the BMW has been. Even though, I mean, I can see it, but it's a hassle to get it out. And I was talking to a guy yesterday who has a similar lift setup as I do, and he said the same thing. He goes, "Yeah, I guess you know once it's up on the lift, it's like you know it's like you know an act of God to make me want to like
Yeah,
take it down."
it's part of the ceiling.
Right. So BMW is back on the road, Mercedes is off the road, and so that's sort of what's going on in the car world for me. I do have a project potentially this afternoon if I manage to muster the will to do it, and that's to dig into the rear brake sliders on the Range Rover because
Mm,
they're I think the issue that I'm having with the sticky rear brake is related to that. That seems to be the conventional wisdom on all the L322 forums is, you know, if your rear brakes are sticking, you need to replace the sliders because they get, you know, they get crud in them and they just they're not very happy about life.
yeah, no,
So
that makes sense.
wish me luck. I might
Yeah,
do. But
yeah, no, I'm still holding on to the season until they dump crap on the road. I'm going to keep driving cars or driving convertibles.
do they brine where you live?
They do. They spray down the roads, and then of course when it actually snows, they dump all kinds of salt and shit all over the roads.
I
It's just
mean,
you're just done at that point.
that was another conversation yesterday was just how corrosive the road brine is compared even to just rock salt.
Hmm.
And you know, once that stuff's down, you know, all bets are off. Like, you know, everybody with the older cars, it's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yesterday, a few of the guys that have more high-end cars left those at home because the road temperatures were low and, you
Mm.
know, sensitive to, you know, squirrely handling and everything with
Yeah, sure.
their super hopped up tires. There's a fellow with a Ford GT and he came in his late model Supra instead because he's just like, yeah, the GT is going to be a handful on these
Hmm.
cold roads. I'm like, okay. I mean, and I mean, when we left, it was probably 40.
Yeah.
By the time we got out there and had lunch, I think it was, you know, mid 60s. But
Uh,
yeah, I get it. I
yeah.
don't have that car. I probably would be more sensitive to it if I did.
Yeah, no, we're definitely in the cooler temps. And there's nothing on the horizon as far as weather goes, and that's actually supposed to be kind of nice this week. So I should probably clean the bower up and at least get it ready for slumber because it is the time of year up here in the Northwoods where oh look, it snowed last night. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah. But so this, you know, this is the season when we start contemplating things like, you know, our lists of oddball cars.
Hmm.
You know, especially when we're not out there playing with our cars, it's like, what do? We play on the internet and we surf for silly cars because why not, right? You know, we could do our day jobs, but where's the fun in that?
Right.
He said going into a very long week coming up.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we could go back and forth. What's first on your list?
So I was thinking about this, and spoiler alert, we may have talked about this earlier in the week. So here and there, I've been thinking about it. Generally, when I'm not thinking about other matters of import. Um, I've talked about this car before, and it's a little out of character because I'm a BMW guy first, a Mercedes guy distant second. Um, and this would be strictly a daily driver. It would replace my five, even though it's a class down, I think, size wise. Jag S type.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. The one and only S type I've ever driven was it green on black or green on tan? It was green on black rental V6 in San Diego. And I loved it.
really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
It was a little different.
What spec?
Uh, the six-cylinder rental spec.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want the six-cylinder rental spec, right? I either want an S Type R or even a nice V8, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
How many, what do you know what the sort of approximate power out of those was, with the eights?
I
I
don't.
don't have a clue.
It's a naturally aspirated 4.2,
It's
so
gonna be mid high 200s
high
probably.
twos, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I like the way they look. I like the size. I'm more of a, we've talked about this before. I'm more of a 3 Series, 5 Series guy. You're more of a 5.7.
Mhm.
But this sort of fits in that mold.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, they're Ford era, so they work a little better. I like the way they look. I think they are a little goofy looking. I think they are a bit of a weird homage to the Mark II, back when Ford and Jaguar and a lot of other companies were kind of doing that retro thing to some degree, with success and some not. But yeah, no, I dig it.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking, just pondering here, picturing that car. I was thinking, those actually look remarkably like those Infiniti J30s. And
Yeah,
then I was thinking, well, yeah, because Infiniti J30s looked remarkably like old Jag S types.
right, right. And I like a J30.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
we'll have to put a picture up because nobody remembers what an Infinity J30 is. I like those. You never see nice ones except the right-hand drive imports from Japan.
mm,
And I'm sure we've talked about this on the podcast before. Any car that I can get in left-hand drive, I don't want in right-hand drive.
right.
And that's, to some degree a J30, but I don't want a right-hand drive 3 Series BMW. I don't want a right-hand drive 5 Series. Like I want the left-hand drive. It's just more useful for my day-to-day driving. So
Like we talked about, you really don't want to do the McDonald's drive-through with a right-hand drive car.
no, and I don't want to do the reacher. I mean, not that I go into my office so often, but like, I don't want to use the reacher to like try to tap my card on the thing on the way out. That's just going to go badly.
I pictured it. You
Yeah,
have
I
one of
know.
those like those old grappling hands from the '80s, with
Right.
the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's exactly that. It's an old person reacher. Oh, look, I dropped my card on the ground. Now I have to get out. Oh, look, there's 10 cars behind me. Yeah, this is going to go. So, so I like an S type.
I can't remember the last time I saw a J30 on the road.
I
I
see. Yeah, no, they didn't sell a lot of them, right?
no,
Because when Infinity, not to fully digress, when Infinity and Lexus hit the market, it was okay, the LS400 and the Q45.
yeah,
And how are we going to fill out the lineup? Oh, well, we're going to have the Camry Lexus, and we're going to have this weird swoopy Nissan that we'll call a J30.
right.
Yeah, we wanted that car. Great car. I mean, cool car.
Yeah,
Uh,
those were rear-wheel drive, weren't they? Yeah,
yeah, yep. Basically the 300ZX driveline,
right.
naturally aspirated. But yeah, no, great looking car. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, I took us
they
off.
sold more Jag S types than
Yeah.
Infiniti. There,
Well, I
there,
mean,
there, there- there's your yardstick.
but the Jag S type, I mean, in the old days, Jaguar was either the XJ or the whatever the coupe was, the XJS, the XJ sedan and the XJS. They didn't have the Jag for 3, 5 series people. You either had the big sedan or you had the coupe convertible.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think when they did the S type and the X type, all of a sudden, but people that sort of, ooh, I've always wanted a Jaguar, all of a sudden they could buy it for sort of, high Passat money,
Right.
and so there's an appeal to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it worked to some degree with the S type. People were like, okay, it looks like a Jag,
Yeah.
goes like a Jag. When they got to the X type, they're like, yeah, it's a Ford.
Yeah.
It's just a Ford.
Yeah. I
Um,
think that's right. Other
yeah.
than the wagon, didn't they had the wagon version of the X type that was kind of funky.
Well, and they had the stick sedans too,
Yeah.
right? And they were all wheel drive.
Well,
Uh,
there was a little bit of fun there, but they were not it
it
wasn't
was
like looking at an old XJ sedan or an old XK.
no, it was a Ford Mondeo.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
anyway,
No,
yeah.
that's
So
that's a good
that's
one.
yeah. And again, I probably wouldn't have it for a long time, but it'd be fun to have for a little bit.
So interestingly, as I wrote down a list. I think I wrote down a list before, and I subsequently lost it. So I don't even know if these are the same cars, because it's your mood changes, your thoughts change, whatever. But interestingly, I've written down. Well, I wrote down 6 cars, but one of them I sort of put in parentheses because I don't actually think it qualifies here. All the other ones are American. I
Hmm.
and I was it wasn't on purpose, but as I was thinking about it later, I think that especially for our generation and the cars that we either feel nostalgic about or whatever, but we're embarrassed about, it's the American cars because they weren't great cars. I mean, in
No.
the broad sense, when the Germans were making 126 Mercedes or 123 Mercedes or 124 Mercedes or E you know geez E23, E24, E28 BMWs, and the later the later fives, they were making cool cars. The Japanese were making great cars by then, by the early 80s. I mean, the Camry came out in 82 or 83, and it was just a reliable, affordable car, and it just worked. I mean, it was a little homely in that Japanese way, but in this market, it appealed to people. The American cars, I mean, there's a reason that's the malaise era, right? I mean, they were sort of, a lot of the tech was still old, and when they
Mhm.
tried to make it new, they couldn't keep up with the foreign brands. And so where America had dominated, all of a sudden we were sort of a distant third in sort of, and Europe in for enthusiasts being sort of number one.
Right.
I encompass all of Europe, maybe not the UK, but certainly the Germans, the Swedes, folks like that. Well, maybe not the French either. Germans were sort of number
Primarily the Germans. I mean,
um, but not the Swedes in there
The
too.
Italians were giving up by that
Yeah,
point.
Italians and French and Brits were having their own sort of malaise
Right.
issues. And then Japanese were second, and Americans, were kind of third. But one, again, several of the cars that I like are sort of from the 70s through the 90s. One of them actually goes into the 2000s. But first one I want to talk about is the GM10 Olds Cutlass convertible.
Mm. Hmm.
It's front wheel drive. It's got that goofy hoop on
Yep.
it, the grab handle
Yep.
across the top.
Yep.
I like the GM10s. I like the Grand Prix, and I like the Olds. Um, I I I just thought they were neat cars. Not so much the Lumina. Didn't
Yeah.
really do much for me. But I
I thought the Pontiac styling didn't really translate, but I'll give you the Oldsmobile.
and if you get the right one, it's got the 4-place seating.
Hmm.
They've got console shift, and I mean the motors are known quantities. I mean I can have that car worked on at Buddy's Auto Care over in the next town over, and they can work on it because they've worked on it for 100 years. You can get it with, those came with a few different motors, starting with I think the 3.1 or maybe the 2.86. I think they went up to the 33. I don't think they ever got the 3800.
Did they get the 24 valve engine in those?
That's a good question. I'm going to put a little bar at the bottom of this after I look that up.
Yeah. Because I think some of those had, I don't remember the displacement, but I thought they had 24 valve engines.
But I mean, but they could get out of their own way, certainly. You had
Right.
room for, yourself and three of your friends or yourself if you don't have any. And yeah, I think they were reasonably attractive cars, but very much of the time.
Mhm.
And sort of at the tail end of the most bland of the American cars. I mean, growing up, we had two A-body, GM front wheel drive cars, the Pontiac 6000s. We liked the 6000 so much we did it again. But it was a milk toast car. I mean, and the styling was, well, the interior, the outsides just looked like, if I told my kid to draw a station wagon right now, that's basically the car they would draw. But I mean, and the dashboard was just wacky. I mean, it was angles and flat, broad band
And yeah,
speedometers and all that stuff that is just counter to all of my automotive tastes and preferences. But the old guys did it pretty well with that car. They had nice gauge packages,
all the buttons,
all the buttons.
all the
I
buttons and
like
space.
buttons. And so do some of the people that read our blog because, consistently the articles that we've done on like 80s GM cars get a lot of hits for some reason. And it's always
Yeah,
the cars with all the buttons, like the Bonnevilles and
yeah.
stuff like that. But anyway, so
And frequently Oldsmobiles.
yeah. Actually, no, they
Oldsmobiles and Pontiacs.
yeah. That Delta 88 piece
Yeah,
gets a lot. It's
yeah.
it's, it's kind of wild. So yeah, my first one's the Cutlass convertible.
Hmm. I get it. So speaking of cars that have a handle, and actually my Bauer sort of has a handle, but it has door frame, full door frames also. Again, I'm going to preface this with something, and I feel like I'm
Didn't
prefacing
even
a
think
lot.
of another car that has a hand. All right, I'm curious. All right.
Okay. I feel like even though we're having this conversation, and I don't feel like I have to justify things, I feel like I'm prefacing a lot, and I'm prefacing it with, I will never own another Volkswagen,
Oh,
except I like a second slash third gen Cabrio. Not a Mark One, like a Rabbit. I don't want a Rabbit.
well, you had one.
I had one, and I drove one the better part of 20 years ago, a nice one, and it was terrible. It was a really old car.
Yeah.
I like a four-place convertible, to your point.
Mm-hmm.
I like a stick.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Cabrio thing in that they're actually fairly solid. And it's sort of that time aesthetically that Volkswagen still looked like Volkswagens.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they were sort of boxy in that Germanic
Yep.
Volkswagen-ish way.
Yep. Um, they were always sort of they were built from like the leftover parts of other Volkswagens, right? Like there'd be some Mark II Golf in there, there'd be some Mark III, eventually there'd be some Mark IV parts in there. It's like, oh, it's the gauge cluster from a late Mark III. Okay, that's weird.
Mm.
It's the drum brakes from a Mark II, but eventually they became discs. I mean, they were just weird hodgepodges of parts.
Did those all have the 2 liter four-cylinder?
I think so.
All right, we'll put that in the notes at the bottom of the
I
screen.
think they all had variations of the 2 liter. I think most, if not all of them, had the ABA 2 liter, which was like 115 horse.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it could get out of its own way. My Jetta 3 had that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, no, I think a lot of them had that engine. But Volkswagens are like Lego, and you can build whatever you want out of them. Um,
yeah, that's right. Because I've seen several people, where they've done, VR6 conversions in those cars.
you can do the VR6, you can do, I think, the 1.8 turbo. I mean, you can,
Mm,
I don't think anybody's put a 2.5 five banger in one, but you probably could.
no.
Uh, but I always thought they were decent looking cars. The tops, like the Mark One cabriolets and Rabbits, were thick and padded and generally pretty well isolated. Seats are comfy. It's very much that it's a very much old school Volkswagen vibe without being a Mark One,
Yeah.
and to a large degree, even a Mark Two. It really is sort of Mark Three, Mark Four era.
Well, when we had the Mark One cabriolet in what was that, the late 90s. It was an 89 and it was a really old car in the late 90s,
Yeah.
and had a hard time getting out of its own way. I mean, one of the promises I always felt like that car made was, well, it's like a ragtop GTI.
Not unless you built it as such.
Well, and in all fairness, the GTI, the Mark One GTI, it's sort of probably like the Preludes are for us. Like back in
Mhm.
the day, great fun little car, and I'm sure you can still have fun in it, but you can have more fun in some other stuff.
Yeah.
It's not quite the powerhouse that I think it once was, at least in my mind.
Yeah. No.
But
So yeah, that's
what
one I
color?
think. Yeah, there was, you do tornado red. There was a nice blue that looked like Audi's Helios blue.
Hmm.
I don't remember what the color was.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that with tan interior would be nice.
yeah, silver on black. Like
Huh?
I keep telling Chris, my wife, for those at home, I really want my next car to be a color, right? Like, yeah, well, look, another gray on gray BMW. Um, but I would do a silver on black. I feel like that's kind of a classic Volkswagen look.
Hmm. And those interiors, I think, look better in the dark colors than the light colors.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the tan, I mean, you see a lot that are sort of that almost white color. It's like, a white interior, especially on a 20-something-year-old car, it's not going to look good.
Yeah, yeah.
But a black interior hides a multitude of sins.
Oh no, it does. It does. And that interior is really, Mark III Jetta interior, like the
Yeah.
dashboard. And that's still a good look. And the early ones is, sort of that, how do you want to, how do you balance your preference, right? Like the early ones had that kind of interesting green backlighting for the gauges, but then the later ones got that purpley blue color, which I always thought looked like ass. But
Mm.
it, but you want the rear discs as opposed to the rear drums. So it's, I don't know. I kind of dig them. Finding a stick with seat heaters might be a little challenging, but they're out there.
They're out there. Yeah, I mean, they
And
made a lot of them.
they made a fair amount of them. When I worked at the dealer years and years ago, we didn't see a lot of them.
Hmm.
Um, and frequently, again, Volkswagen parts bin, sometimes they were neither fish nor fowl. It's like, yeah, this part only exists on this car and it has to come from Germany. And I can't imagine in the ensuing 15 plus years that's gotten easier.
No, probably not.
Yeah. So,
No, I like that one.
so
So,
yeah.
next one on my list, you know this one. I have always wanted a 79 through 85 Buick Riviera.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really like the convertible, but I like the coupe too. It
Hmm.
is everything that was right and everything that was wrong about General Motors at that time. That car was front wheel drive with a big motor. You get 5 liter or 5.7, depending on the model and the year. They had a nice sort of swage line down the side. Um, the AC was cryogenic, still is. The parts are all readily available, but they've got that vertical back window that was so typical of luxury cars GM everything just about at that
Mhm.
time. Any four-door sedan or coupe had that vertical back window. With the convertible or the coupe, they both did. You could get the coupe with a glass sunroof,
Hmm.
and it just to me. So my aunt in Texas had two different Rivieras, and she'd let us take them out. Take the cars out. My sister was driving them when I was driving later on. But we could cruise around. It's a great cruising car. I think especially the convertible, in my mind, and this is subject to debate, and I'm not going to fight anybody over it, but it's very much a GM 1980s interpretation of the Rolls Corniche. I stand by that. It's again, it's a four-place convertible. You know, if you get the convertible, it's got that sort of luxury coupe thing. They all had either leather or velour, and the velour is just sumptuous, right? You know, it's so 80s. Um, didn't have a center console. You could have gotten it with sort of what they called a center console, which was basically just a box between the front seats.
Yeah.
You know, they had that really flat floorboard because front wheel drive. The steering was super light, you know, just in that very 80s Cadillac, Buick, Oldsmobile, full-size car way. You know, you could turn the steering wheel with the fake wood
Hmm.
inlay in it with your pinky finger. I mean, you know, it's a cruiser. It's a ride around with your friends with the top down, your sunglasses on, sort of interpretation of the Corniche. And I like them. And I want the GM stereo with the graphic equalizer,
What do you
five
think?
bar.
What do you think over the course of both of those cars' production runs, and they made the Corniche a lot longer? What do you think the cross shop was between that and the roll and the equivalent General Motors product? Do you think it was zero or zero?
No, no, I beg to differ. I think in places like West Texas, when the bottom fell out of the oil market, all the folks that had been driving Corniches went and bought Rivieras.
I would be hugely interested in seeing some data to back that up. In fact, I would be interested in seeing any data to back that up. Now, our fathers were frugal guys, right? Like, you know, they'd spend the money if they really wanted to. But like, my father liked K cars because they were good value. He never owned one, he never thought about buying one, but he admired it because it was a good value.
Yeah.
I'm trying to scale that to, my father made a lot of money in the oil business, but instead of buying that Corniche, I think I'm going Riviera. And
No, those aren't the
and
people
I
I'm
can't
talking
get
about.
there. And I can't get there.
I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people had money that they made in the oil business and then lost it all when the bottom fell out.
Why wouldn't they just keep the Corniche they have already?
They can't afford to. They have to sell it so they can make their house payment because the bottom fell out of the oil market and they got no money.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you. And then they went and bought a Buick. Their wife was driving the Rolls. "Well, sweetheart, we can't afford the Rolls anymore. Rolls has got to go. Here's your Buick. Love it."
Okay.
And you know, with the convertible, you have your choice of white or burgundy,
Hmm.
which I always thought was fascinating. They all had burgundy interiors, I think, on the Rivieras, or the majority did. I think they had a maybe there were a few that had tan, what have you, but by and large, they all had the majority had burgundy interiors, and you can get them in either metallic burgundy or bright white, you know, refrigerator white.
Hmm.
I think in the convertible, I want the burgundy, but
I
like in
think
a
I
coupe,
think I think you'd have to.
yeah, because a white, I don't want a white Buick. I think that's a step too far for me. They all had white tops too, I think. But you know, nowadays you can get the top in black or whatever.
Hmm.
The coupe, I actually saw a really pretty. It was an early one. I think it was a '79 or an '80. You know, the absolute worst time to buy any American car, but whatever.
Right.
Um,
Right.
emissions was at its worst, right? You know, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it had a V8 that probably put out 87 horsepower. Yeah.
Right. Right. And
But
computer engine control was like,
oh, it's like that old
a
Cadillac,
Commodore VIC-20 in the trunk.
or the Cadillacs that had the V8 6.4s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, but I saw a really pretty metallic green on tan Riviera, and I thought that's not an unattractive car. I
Yeah.
don't think I want to live with it for the rest of my life, but I would play with it.
I would agree with that. And I think there's always going to be a market for that car, especially as the younger
Hmm.
generations, um, again, not to digress completely, the younger generations seem to be um, attracted to those cars that we shunned in our youth because they were current and American and whatever. But like the younger generations are really sort of fixating on American luxury cars from the late 60s through the 80s. Like,
Hmm.
yeah. So. Buy now. You could make money on that.
And you can get them for, I mean, you can get a nice one for 10 grand, a really nice one. You
Mm.
get a super low mileage one for like 15. I mean, there's guys trying to sell them for 30 because they're trying to, pump the market up. But I mean, you can get a crappy one for like 4 grand,
Yeah,
but still like running and driving.
yeah.
Anyway, that's a convertible, the coupe. I
That's
don't know,
convertible.
2 grand, 3 grand. We'll have to look for that for a cheap heap of the week.
Yeah, yeah.
So what you
That's
got next?
that's hilarious. Car I admire. So it's a badge job. Speaking of General Motors cars, actually, yeah. Speaking of General Motors cars, sort of an extension. A car I admire. It's fairly rare. Is the Saab 92X, the Subaru.
Hmm.
And the question is, of course, why don't you just buy a WRX?
That's what I was about to ask. Yeah.
Right. Um, because I do feel at this stage, any WRX I get or would get of that era, unless you're spending all the money, is going to be third, fourth, fifth hand,
Mm.
thrashed car.
Mhm.
The Subarus, in addition to being a little more refined, really don't have that run hard, put away wet vibe, right?
It seems like they were all owned by like young women in Maine.
Great. I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
no, and that's not like a bad thing. I'm just,
Yeah, no, the only issue is they do have rust problems that all the Subarus of that era have. Um, but I think it's a nice looking car. They were all the wagon.
mm, hmm.
Um, you know, you can get the stick. And I think it's just a little bit of a nicer place to be. And I feel like it's a little different.
Gonna get a 9.4 or a 9.7 to go with it.
No, no, no. Although the 9.7 with I guess it was the Arrow, the Blazer one
Yeah, yeah.
with the hot rod LS in it.
Mm, that could be its own brand of
Probably
car.
not, but I get it.
Yeah,
But if
yeah,
you did, I would understand.
yeah, yeah. I'll put a parenthetical around that one too. No, I like the 9.2 actually. I have in the past when I've looked for that vintage WRX. I always wanted one of the like the '02 WRXs with the big round fog
Yeah,
lights.
bug eye. Yeah.
Yeah. Or the big round headlights. Yeah, they were neat cars. And the Saab version. I mean, I don't know if I'd use the word refined, but I know what you mean. And I like a lot, like I like some of the trim stuff that differs. Just, the Saab touches that they threw
Yep.
at them were kind of cool. And I like a Saab. I
I
mean,
like this.
we had that 9.5 wagon that's sort of the same vintage. And it just, it was cool in its own goofy Saab way.
Mhm.
And it's one of the things I like about the Range Rover is that stupid key in the middle on the
Yep.
console. And I guess the Subarus didn't have that. They followed the Subaru. I think
Yeah, no, I don't think those ever had that. But what's nice is if you wanted to modify your 92X, pretty much everything translates over,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So you can have a little hot rod 92X, but it isn't like some 18-year-old's hot rod
yeah.
WRX.
No, that's fair. No, I could get behind. I could get behind that. I don't even know that one's that sort of embarrassing. I mean, if I show up at a Concours event in Bedford, New York, in a Buick Riviera, I have a feeling that I'm going to walk away with sort of the joke prize, right?
Right.
I think a clean 9.2X, like if you found a really nice one, like I feel like that's a respectable car.
No, no, it's not the embarrassing part. It's the constant question of why don't you just buy WRX? There's a lot more of them,
That's okay. Yeah, no,
right?
that's
I mean that's where that sort of
yeah.
falls.
You'd answer that question a lot.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. First, what is it? And then why didn't you just buy a WRX?
yeah, no, that's
And I feel like a 92X is a little under the radar. Like a really, really clean bug-eye WRX ain't a cheap car anymore.
no.
And I don't know that 92Xs are either. I've never looked for one, but I don't know.
I feel like they're reasonable, and again, I mean, while people knew what they were back in those days, because Road and Track wrote about them or whatever. Yeah, newer enthusiasts, it's not something they think about. I mean, a lot of the kids now haven't even heard of Saabs.
Right.
Although there's a young guy that shows up, actually he and a buddy that show up at our Cars and Coffee that have old Saab, like GM era Saab 900, like
Oh
V,
yeah.
the hopped
Yeah.
up. So okay, that's kind of cool. Like, and I like that you're into the wonky whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I like that one.
A guy I used to know here had, for a very brief amount of time, had a 9.3 Vigan of that era. And he said it was a great car, but it was constantly broken. Like, and he may have had a bad one, but he just said, yeah, I'm always working on this car.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But they're European in that way. I mean, the ones with the Saab engine, you're gonna have to. They need love and care, just like all the European cars of that time, right?
Yeah.
But I digress. All
Yeah.
right, um,
What else you got?
Lincoln Mark 7.
Oh, I like a Mark 7.
I like a Mark 7. I like an LSC,
Yep.
and I'm a little torn because I like the early LSC with sort of the flat disc wheels.
Hmm.
They're almost like I can't even think. Sort of a Ford version of like the Mercedes Gully Deco wheel or something.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I
It's a
know the
flat
one.
face wheel, but I also like them with the spoke wheels. The thin spoke alloys,
Hmm.
and I like them with the BBSs.
I got to go with the BBS
Right?
styles. That is an iconic
It,
look.
it's an iconic look, and they put them on a lot of cars. I mean, they
Yeah.
were putting those on Crown Vics and stuff.
Grand
Mercuries
Marquis,
and
yeah.
all that. So there's a lot of them out there. I like you were talking about buttons earlier. I remember the article, and if I can find it in my stash outside, I might try and shoot a picture of the article because one of the photos in I think it's Car and Driver. It just showed the console with the row of buttons that had no markings on them.
Right, right.
'Cause
Presumably something lit up there.
I assume. And so like you had the buttons, you also have the ability to use Mustang parts on it. So you've got that Mustang 5 liter that you can do a Cobra intake. I mean the same thing from the GT and various other Fords of the time. I mean it's all a Fox body underneath.
Yep. You
Um,
5-speed swap it, 6-speed swap it.
yeah, yeah. I mean they were all automatics, but who cares? I
But they
mean
don't have to be.
that car can you can do as much of that as your wallet and your patience and your threshold for dealing will allow.
So,
I,
so my question is, and I agree with you completely. I've liked those cars since David E. Davis had one
yeah,
that he sent over to Roush when he was a car and driver. What's the embarrassment factor?
I I think
Because I think those cars actually have a huge following now.
well, I think that it's really in our circles.
Mm,
So we tend to be very much in sort of the BMW, Mercedes, Porsche, those kind of circles. And when you say Lincoln, just like we were talking about the town car earlier, how
mm.
can you have fun? I mean, a Lincoln is a big, squishy car. And if I recall correctly, I think the LSCs, all the Mark 7s maybe had at least self-leveling rear suspension. So you've got sort of the squishy air suspension. With the LSC package, is it firmer? I'd have to look all that up. You know, it's almost like they tried to tart up an ugly car with sport, like a lot of the '80s brands did back in the day. I
Hmm.
think that you have to enhance it to really make it a respectable car. But will the people that you interact with ever respect that car? To me, it's why didn't you buy a Mercedes SEC?
Hmm.
Or why didn't you buy a 6 Series? Those were the contemporaries.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Arguably, and not even necessarily arguably, better cars all day long.
Hmm.
I mean, I think they just were. But the LSC has sort of you know, British people wouldn't get it. I've got a lot of friends or a few friends who are British car people. Like if I said that to them, they glaze over. Like I don't even know what that is. Like what are you talking about? You know, that's the kind of car that you could see Clarkson and company making fun of on one of their trips around. Like he got the Mark V that time
Right,
and
right.
drove through Scotland and it didn't fit anywhere. I mean, it's a big tubby car. The styling is very much Ford of the '80s with the wrap over doors and all that. I mean, like a Ford Tempo.
And I'll argue with you that it's a big tubby car because what I have found when I come across cars of that era,
Yeah.
um, and I haven't been next to one in a while, they're actually not that big. And don't forget, and it may be a modified Fox platform, but it's still a Fox platform. And if you stand next to like, a Mustang GT or an LX 5 liter, whatever, they're not big cars.
They've gotten smaller.
I mean, oddly, they've all shrunk.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the thing. Yeah, we've talked about this before. When my buddy Rob got his Black Six series, went over to his house and looked at it. I'm like, this isn't a big car
No, no,
compared
the
to what I
six is not a
remember.
big car.
Right. Like it, and they were sort of comparable sizes.
I mean, the SEC was a decent sized car, but parked next to a new S Class, it's dwarfed. It's like parking an old air cooled 911 next to,
Right.
my neighbor's GT3. Oh my God! Like the GT3 is, or
That's
the old one is a two-thirds scale.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's kind of weird that way. I guess what I'm thinking by saying tubby, big and tubby, I'll concede it's not big, but they look a little bulbous. They
Yeah.
just
No, it's an 80s
part of that
Ford. I mean, it's yeah.
styling of that time, right? They just have that look to them. But I liked, they had the Euro style front ends. That
Right.
was early.
First U.S. cars that had composite headlights.
Yeah, and they had the composite headlights. They had the fog lights. Do you remember the ad that for the Mark 7 where they show the full front end of the Mark 7 and then just like a part of the front end from the Mercedes SEC? And that was the comparison that Ford was making or Lincoln was making in the magazines. It was a two-page ad. I'll have to see if I can find that too.
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that was they were targeting that, and it's sort of like the question you asked earlier. The cross shopping. Did a lot of people cross shop SECs and LSC Mark Sevens? No, 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 they didn't. Uh, you know, Maybe if they were like my dad with his, you have to get an American car, company car
Right.
policy, they say, well, I really want the Mercedes, but I guess I'll get the Lincoln. But you still see nice ones, and to your point, there is a following for it. But I think there's probably a following for the Subaru too. I'll bet you there's like a group of people that are all in on their Subarus.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Um, but I do think that people in the car circles that we walk around in would sort of go, huh?
Hmm.
You know, aren't you a Mercedes guy? It's the Kia thing. Like that's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
Mercedes. No,
yeah. No, it's
no, no, it's a Lincoln. And you know what? I turned it up to 11 because I could.
right, and it'll boil the tires from here to next week.
Oh my God! And it would, right?
Oh, it would. Yeah, no,
You,
no.
you, you do brake stands in that car?
Yeah, yeah. No, I like those. I always have. We wrote about one ages ago. It was an aftermarket convertible chop on an
Yeah.
LSC with basket weaves, and it was like, yeah, they wanted not a lot of money for it. It was for
Yeah.
sale for a while.
And they're a good deal. I mean, I think a lot of the cars we're talking about are generally available, cheap, relatively speaking.
I, so just looking at my list. You can have an S type by the end of the day if
Yep.
you're not picky. You can have an S type R probably by Wednesday if you're really looking. Second, third gen Cabrio, a little harder to find. I think they didn't sell a lot relatively, and they do rust away.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think if you look in warmer climates, you could find one. Sort of same thing with Subaru. Like I think because nobody knew what they were back then. Because going back to the Lexus Infinity model, like we have our core car, now we have to fill out the line. And
Yeah.
it got real weird when GM took over
Yeah.
Saab. It's like, oh, we're gonna have some Saab SUV, or we're gonna have some GM SUVs, and we need a small car. Well, we own a stake in Subaru. Let's do that. So I mean, it got a little weird there. Um, and I mean, the cars were totally an afterthought. So again, I don't think there's a lot of them out there. So
Yeah.
finding a decent one might be harder.
It's not like finding, that one-off Ferrari, whatever. I mean, they're
Yeah,
out there.
oh, they're
You
out.
just have to be patient. Anyway, no, I agree. So that's number three for me.
Okay.
It's funny now having gone through the list. Like, am I super motivated to go buy any of these? Not particularly.
Not really.
I, you know, I'd love to, have some like car share setup thing where you could just like play with it for a month.
Hmm.
But I mean, I say that if the mood hit me at the right time, I might go down one of those roads. If I was to pick any of them that I was most interested in, like I would actually consider pursuing, be the Mark 7.
Hmm.
I I've always had like a thing about owning one of those. Again, I've driven a Riviera before. I know what it drives like,
Hmm.
and I do like to drive. So the Riviera, I think the fun factor, fun in that sort of broad sense, anything can be fun. I think the fun factor would be very limited on that car. The olds, they're cool.
They are cool.
They're funky. I think finding a nice one would be a huge challenge, and I think that I'd get in it and be pleasantly or not reminded of my parents' Pontiac 6000.
I think those cars, especially the convertibles, most of the not great ones have fallen off the road already. And
Maybe.
what's left, again, not that they made so many, but I think I think if you wanted a nice one, you could find a nice one. Um,
I might worry about the premium that people expect for a nice one. I mean, and I think that's part of it too, is like how much are you willing to pay for a nice Cutlass convertible? I think what people probably want for a nice one is more than I'm willing to pay.
hmm. Yeah, it'll never be a $25,000 car in my mind.
No, no. I mean,
Eventually they might be, but not to me.
yeah, I have to look at what those sell for on Bring a Trailer if they've ever had one.
Yeah,
I think they must have. I'll check. I'll
yeah,
add that to the bottom of the screen.
right.
So which one would you like be most likely to acquire?
At this point, I'm probably looking at, I don't need another convertible. Um, I feel like, as a winter drive around car, it's a toss up between the Subaru and the Jag.
Mm.
You know,
If I were guessing for you, I would see you in the Jag.
I do like the S type.
I think, well, you've said that for a long time,
Yeah.
and I feel like the Subaru, you're very comfortable, as I've observed, in the 5 Series.
Yes.
I think midsize has suited you in midlife.
I would agree with that. I did grow out of my 3 Series cars. I mean, we still have the 323, but that's not an all the time car.
I think
Uh,
the Subaru is a small car.
I think it is too. Actually, a friend of ours had a Bug-Eye WRX wagon ages and ages ago when the cars were new. And even back then, I remember thinking that's a small car.
Mm.
So I feel like it's probably the S type. Um,
So if folks have actually made it this far, I would love to see comments at all. I would love to see comments that about cars that are sort of on your sort of secret list.
yeah,
Could be anything. No judgment here, obviously. Reference Buick Riviera. Um, Judgment-free zone. Nobody's going to mock you. Well, at least we're not going to. Other people could, I suppose, but we can't control. Well, I guess we could control that, but we're not going to.
right.
But yeah, I mean, drop a comment. What would you have? I think about your friend commenting on another one of our videos about his LeBaron GTS. I wonder if that's a car that he would want now. Because and would that be embarrassing? I think in similar ways to some of the cars, or not embarrassing again, but would you want to own that and explain it to your friends?
Right. Right. And I think in his case, he probably wouldn't. He's a pretty hardcore BMW guy now.
Maybe if it had CarPlay, he'd want
Maybe.
it. Anyway, leave a comment.
Leave a
Yes,
comment. Thanks for making it this far if you did.